I'm Denise Morgan, 32 years old, and last Tuesday my husband Kevin died of a sudden heart attack. One moment, he was making dinosaur-shaped pancakes for our daughter Lily, and the next, he was gone. Just like that. No warning, no goodbye. I'm about to share something personal, but first, drop your city or country in the comments. Let's see how many hearts this story can touch. It started like any ordinary Tuesday. Kevin kissed Lily's forehead, then mine, and reminded me to grab real maple syrup. None of that corn syrup nonsense, he joked. He left for work with a smile on his face. I never imagined it would be the last one I'd see. The call came at 10:47 a.m. I remember the exact time because I was refilling the bird feeder on our back porch. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Amanda, Kevin's assistant. Her voice trembled. Denise. Kevin collapsed. Paramedics are here. They're taking him to Northwestern Memorial. My hand jerked. Birdseed spilled across the wooden floor as I sank to my knees. Phone still pressed to my ear. Collapsed? What do you mean collapsed? But Amanda couldn't say more. She was crying too hard. She just kept saying, I'm sorry, before the line went dead. I ran into the house, called Ellen, our neighbor, to pick up Lily from school and grab my keys. I barely remember the drive. I broke every speed limit. My hands gripped the wheel so tightly they went numb. I was praying out loud, begging God not to take him, promising anything, everything, if he'd just be okay. But I was too late. When I arrived at the hospital, a nurse took me aside. Her face said it before her words did. Kevin had died at 11:23 a.m., less than an hour after he kissed us goodbye. A massive heart attack. They said it was quick, that he didn't suffer, that they tried everything, as if those words were supposed to help. I asked to see him. The room was cold. Kevin lay there, his skin still warm when I touched his face. He looked like he was sleeping, peaceful, except his chest wasn't rising, except he wasn't waking up. I kept whispering his name, hoping he'd answer, tell me it was all a cruel mistake. He didn't. The world should have stopped. But nurses walked by. Phones rang. Life somehow continued. Mine had shattered. I was now a widow. Lily, just 8 years old, no longer had a father. I stood in that room, holding Kevin's hand, the weight of 1,000 tomorrows crashing over me. How do you go home after that? How do you tell a child that the pancakes Daddy made that morning were the last thing he'd ever give her? The house was too quiet when I walked back in. The scent of Kevin's cologne still lingered faintly near the hallway, mixed with the sweet, syrupy trace of the breakfast he'd made just hours earlier. I dropped my keys on the counter, the sound echoing louder than it should have in the stillness. Lily was in her room. Ellen had picked her up from school and stayed with her until I came home. Bless her. I hadn't told Lily yet. I didn't even know how. I stood outside her door, frozen, listening to her hum something under her breath. Off-key and innocent. She was coloring, blissfully unaware. How do you look a child in the eyes and take away her world? I knocked softly. Sweetheart, can I come in? She looked up with a smile that melted into concern the moment she saw my face. Where's Daddy? I sat beside her and everything inside me broke. I need to tell you something really hard, I whispered, taking her small hands into mine. Daddy got very sick today. His heart stopped working, and he died. She blinked at me, her blue eyes wide and confused. What do you mean? He said he was coming to my art show tonight. I know, baby, he wanted to, but he can't. He won't be coming home. She stared at me, unmoving. Can the doctors fix him? No, I said, choking on the word. They tried. But sometimes, when a heart stops completely, they can't fix it. The sound that came out of her wasn't a scream. It wasn't even human. It was raw and broken and terrible. The kind of sound that comes from the soul when something shatters beyond repair. She threw herself into my lap, sobbing, shaking, her small body trembling as if her own heart was trying to break in half. I want Daddy, she kept repeating. Please bring him back. I want him. All I could do was hold her, stroke her hair, whisper that I loved her, that Daddy loved her more than anything, that I was here, that we were going to be okay, even though I didn't believe it. We ended up in my bed that night. She clutched Kevin's unwashed t-shirt like a lifeline. I couldn't sleep. I lay there listening to the quiet breaths of my daughter beside me, staring into the dark, trying to understand how the world could keep turning. The loneliness was unlike anything I'd ever felt. A silence that screamed. A grief that didn't feel real yet. Just a numb, spreading cold. I wanted to call someone. My parents, my sister. But I already knew they weren't the ones I could count on. Not now. So I lay there in the dark, wrapped around my daughter, the both of us broken in ways we didn't yet understand, trying to survive the longest night of our lives. It took me almost an hour to find the courage. I sat on the bathroom floor, door closed so Lily wouldn't hear me cry, Kevin's shirt bunched in my lap like a lifeline. My hands were shaking as I unlocked my phone and scrolled to Mom. I stared at her name, willing myself to believe that no matter our history, no matter the favoritism, she would come through for me now. She had to. It rang 5 times before she picked up. I could hear laughter in the background, music, the clinking of glasses. "Hello?" she said, half shouting over the noise. "Mom," my voice cracked. Just that one word, and I started sobbing again. "It's Kevin. He died. Today. A heart attack. He's gone." There was a pause. Then she said, "Wait, what? Are you sure?" "I saw him, Mom. I held his hand. He's gone." My voice was barely above a whisper, shredded by grief. Another pause, then muffled talking. She must have covered the phone to speak to someone. When she came back on, her voice was quieter, but still distracted. "Sweetie, I'm so sorry. That's awful. But we're in the middle of your brother's birthday dinner. It's his 40th. We've got guests. The caterers are here. Can this wait until tomorrow?" I felt like the air had been knocked out of me. It can't wait. Kevin died. Lily lost her father. I need you. "Well, this is a shock, of course. But things are hectic here. Can you manage tonight? We'll come by tomorrow when things calm down." I didn't answer. I couldn't. My mouth was open, but no sound came. She sounded like I had called her about a flat tire, like this was an inconvenience. Like Kevin's death was an item on a to-do list she'd get to later. "I just thought you'd want to know," I finally said. "That's all." There was silence on her end. Then, "Of course we care, Rachel. But right now, we're just in the middle of everything." I hung up without saying goodbye. I sat there, phone in hand, staring at the bathroom tile until it blurred with tears. I thought of Lily, sleeping in my bed, her face still red and swollen from crying. I thought of Kevin's voice that morning, telling me to get the good syrup. I thought of how I had just told my mother her son-in-law was dead, and she responded with party logistics. That's when I knew something inside me had shifted. Some part of me had quietly snapped. There would be a before and after, and the woman who walked into that phone call wasn't coming out the same. The next morning, I woke up to the quiet hum of the fridge and Lily's soft breathing beside me. Kevin's side of the bed was cold. I didn't cry, not yet. I think I was still waiting for this to make sense, for someone to say there'd been a mistake, that I'd dreamed it. But every second confirmed the truth. I was alone in this now. The first call came from the funeral home. Logistics, legal names, decisions I wasn't ready to make. "Do you want burial or cremation?" the man asked gently, like he was asking about coffee. "Was there a preferred cemetery? Would you like embalming?" My mouth moved, but I wasn't sure what I said. I was answering questions about how to handle Kevin's body, the same body that had wrapped itself around me every night for nearly a decade. I hung up and stared at the wall, waiting for the next call. I didn't know who to tell first. His boss? His parents? Our friends? Every name in my phone felt like a dagger. What I didn't expect was the silence from my own parents. Not even a follow-up text, not a check-in. Nothing. I tried to give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they were in shock too. Maybe they didn't know what to say. But when I opened Facebook later that day, there it was. A smiling photo of my mother and father, raising glasses at a restaurant. The caption reading, "Celebrating our amazing son's 40th with all the people we love." All the people we love, not a single mention of Kevin. Not even a black ribbon on their profile. My husband had died, and they were clinking champagne. I felt something hollow open inside me. I called Kevin's parents. Diana sobbed so hard I couldn't understand her at first. Robert asked if I needed help with the arrangements, with Lily, with anything. I didn't even have to ask. They just showed up. In their pain, in their love, in their grief. They came. By the time I called Kevin's best friend Marcus in Japan, I could barely speak. "I'm on the next flight," he said. No hesitation, no excuses. Meanwhile, my own family was making toasts and posing for photos. The silence from them rang louder than anything. I kept thinking, surely they'll call. Surely they'll come today. Surely. But each hour passed, and nothing came. Except for Kevin's absence, and the ache that spread through my chest like rot. Trust, once fractured, doesn't scream. It whispers. It shows up in moments like these, in the space between a death and a birthday cake, in who walks through the door and who chooses not to. I never imagined my parents would be on the side that stayed away. Saturday came with sunlight far too bright for a day like this. I stood in front of the mirror, trying to tame my hair, trying to make my face look like something other than wreckage. Kevin's suit, the navy one he wore for client meetings, hung on the closet door, waiting to be buried. I couldn't bring myself to touch it. Thomas, Kevin's old law school friend, had offered to help with everything: the casket, the obituary, even the flowers. I let him. I couldn't think straight. My whole body was moving through syrup. Lily wore a soft blue dress. She insisted. Daddy said I looked like a princess in blue. Her braid kept falling out as she fidgeted. I redid it 3 times before I gave up and just kissed her forehead. "You look perfect," I told her. We arrived an hour early. Kevin's colleagues were already there, somber, teary-eyed, respectful. Amanda, his assistant, hugged me so tightly I thought I might fall apart right there. "He talked about you and Lily every single day," she whispered. The chapel filled slowly. Kevin's old college roommate flew in from Seattle. A woman he once helped navigate bankruptcy brought a bouquet and cried like she'd lost a brother. Everyone who showed up, they didn't just know Kevin, they loved him, except my parents. At 2:03 p.m., just as the music started and everyone began to sit, they walked in, my mother in a floral dress, too bright for mourning, my father checking his watch, Sophia behind them, whispering something to her husband as they slid into the front row I had reserved for family. No apology. No glance in my direction, just a small wave from my mother, like we were at a recital. As the service began, I tried not to look at them. I focused on the photos of Kevin flashing across the screen. Him holding Lily on the day she was born, laughing in our kitchen, wearing reindeer pajamas on Christmas Eve. Each image was a gut punch. When it came time for the eulogy, I didn't think I could stand. But then I looked at Lily, sitting straight and small in the front row, clutching Kevin's handkerchief, and I knew I had to. I spoke about Kevin's kindness, his quiet strength, the way he made people feel safe, how he always showed up no matter what. The irony hung heavy as I said the words, knowing my own parents had done the opposite. As I stepped down, my mother dabbed her eyes with a tissue she hadn't used once before. My father leaned over to ask Sophia something about traffic on the way home. They were here in body, not in spirit. And I realized, with a final clarity sharper than grief, the goodbye I was saying today wasn't just to Kevin, it was to them too. When the funeral was over and the last casserole-bearing guest had left, Lily crawled into my lap on the living room floor, her face pressed against my chest. The silence after everyone was gone was almost worse than the noise. At least the noise had kept me distracted. Now there was just absence. She hadn't asked much the day Kevin died. I think some part of her didn't want to know yet. Like if she didn't say the words, it wouldn't be real. But now, in the hush of our empty home, her voice broke the silence. "Is Daddy really not coming back?" she asked quietly. I looked down at her, her braid frayed from the day, her dress wrinkled and streaked with tears. I wanted to lie. I wanted to tell her something soft, but I couldn't. Not now. "No, baby," I whispered. "He's not." She was quiet for a while, fingers curled into the fabric of my shirt like she was holding on for dear life. Then came the question I'd been dreading. But where did he go? I hesitated. I'd read all the books, Googled all the articles. Say it clearly. Use the words. Don't say gone or lost. But when it's your child, your own daughter staring up at you with your husband's blue eyes. None of the advice matters. Daddy's body stopped working, and he died, I said gently. That means he's not here with us anymore. Not in the way we're used to. She blinked. So the doctors couldn't fix him? I shook my head. Number. They tried, but sometimes even the best doctors can't fix a heart when it stops like that. Her lip quivered. But Daddy said he'd be at my art show. I know, sweetheart, I pulled her closer. He wanted to. So much. He didn't want to leave us. She didn't cry at first. She just stared at the wall, like if she looked long enough, maybe Kevin would walk back in. Then suddenly, her little body shook with sobs. I don't want a world without Daddy, she wailed. It's not fair. No, I said, my own tears falling. It's not. We sat there for a long time, two broken hearts holding on to each other. At some point, she looked up, her eyes swollen and tired. Will I forget him? That question sliced through me deeper than anything else. Never, I said. Not ever. I'll make sure of it. We'll talk about him, remember everything. He'll always be with us, just in a different way now. She nodded slowly, then asked, Can I sleep in your bed tonight? Yes, I said, without hesitation, for as long as you want. That night, with her tiny hand wrapped around my fingers and Kevin's shirt tucked under her cheek, I realized something. Grief hadn't just made her smaller, it had made her braver. And that scared me more than anything. It was a Thursday morning, barely a week after the funeral. Lily had just gone back to school, her backpack hanging awkwardly from one shoulder, too heavy for her still tired frame. I was at the kitchen table, trying to understand our health insurance documents, when the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. Marcus had flown back to Japan. Kevin's parents were due next week. I wiped my eyes and opened the door, only to find my parents standing on the porch like they were there for afternoon tea. My father adjusted the collar of his golf shirt. My mother was checking her lipstick in a compact mirror. Surprised to see us, she said, stepping past me into the hallway before I could even respond. Yes, I said, very. They made themselves comfortable in the living room, settling into chairs like they belonged there. I stood in the doorway, unsure whether to scream or laugh. How's Lily holding up? My mother asked, glancing around as if expecting to see her. She's at school, my father nodded, as if that was good news. Then we can speak frankly. I didn't know what I expected from them. An apology, regret for being late to the funeral, for missing the days when I needed them most. But I should have known better. I should have seen it coming. We've been thinking, my father began, about your situation now. What situation? I asked, my throat suddenly dry. He cleared his throat. Financially, with Kevin gone, you're in a very different place. We understand there was a substantial life insurance policy. I blinked, not sure I'd heard him right. We're not asking for all of it, my mother added quickly, as if that made this better. Just a portion, 50% seems fair. After all, family supports family. We supported you through college, through your first house. This is just balancing the scales. I stared at them, the walls of my home pressing in around me. My husband is dead, I said slowly. Every word deliberate. I buried him days ago. And you're here asking for money? You'll still have plenty, my father said, missing the warning in my tone. And this would secure our retirement. Sophia's been struggling too. We thought perhaps she could... Stop, I snapped. Just stop. The silence that followed was thick and sharp. My mother looked away. My father set his coffee down on a coaster, as if we were still playing at being civil. I stood. You need to leave, now. Rachel, you made your priorities clear when Kevin died. You couldn't be bothered then, and you don't get to show up now with your hands out. They didn't fight me. They just stood, exchanged a look, and walked out without another word. When the door clicked shut behind them, I locked it. Then I sat on the floor and cried. Not just for Kevin, but for the parents I'd finally accepted I never really had. The next day, the doorbell rang again. I froze, heart already racing, stomach tight. I half hoped it was a neighbor dropping off mail by mistake, or Ellen from next door coming by to check in. But when I looked through the peephole, I saw my father. Alone this time. No warm casserole in his hands. No apology on his face. I opened the door, but didn't invite him in. Rachel, he said, like we were resuming a polite conversation. We need to finish our discussion from yesterday. There's nothing to finish, I replied, blocking the doorway. I don't think you're being rational, he said, stepping inside anyway. He went straight to the living room and sat down, the same place he'd planted himself the day before, like he owned the furniture. You're grieving, I understand, but this is precisely when you need to be thinking clearly. I stayed standing, arms crossed. You want to talk about grief now? He ignored the jab. This is about long-term planning, about fairness. Your mother and I aren't getting any younger. Healthcare is expensive, inflation's insane. You're going to need help managing that payout responsibly. There is no we managing anything, I said. Kevin left that money for Lily and me, period. He sighed, as if I were the child again, being difficult. We supported you for years. You wouldn't be in this position if it weren't for us. And your mother, she's heartbroken too, you know. She's just not as emotional about things. I felt a laugh bubble in my throat, brittle and sharp. She wasn't too heartbroken to throw a birthday party the day he died. He blinked, like he hadn't expected that to come back around. You're talking about duty, I continued. Let's talk about that. Where was your duty when I called you, sobbing, telling you Kevin was gone? Where was your duty when Lily cried herself to sleep that night? His face hardened. We came to the funeral. Late, and only after you made sure Sophia had the spotlight first. This isn't helping anyone, he said, standing up now. I'm offering a solution. 50%, and we move forward without resentment. We've done our part. Now it's your turn. It was then I realized this wasn't about grief. It wasn't about family. It was business to him. A ledger with favors on one side and debts on the other. And in his eyes, Kevin's death was a windfall. An opportunity. I stepped back. You need to leave, and don't come back. He opened his mouth, maybe to argue, maybe to threaten. But I slammed the door before he could finish. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from fury. I had just buried the love of my life, and my father thought that meant it was time to settle accounts. It was Sunday afternoon when they came back. This time, both of them. My mother had on pearls like it was Easter brunch. My father carried a folder, no doubt filled with numbers and projections. I opened the door just enough to block most of it with my body. We need to talk, my father said, already stepping forward. No, I said firmly, we don't. But they pushed in anyway, brushing past me like it was their right. We're not here to fight, my mother said, with that too sweet tone she used when trying to manipulate me as a kid. We just want to have a reasonable discussion. I followed them to the living room, arms crossed, my voice already rising with the pulse in my throat. You've made it clear what you want. Money, not me, not Lily, not Kevin's memory, just a payout. That's not fair, my father snapped. We are trying to help you. By demanding half of the money meant for my daughter's future, I shot back. That's not help. That's theft with extra audacity. He placed the folder down on the coffee table and flipped it open, showing neat rows of numbers, color-coded tabs, and calculations. We're asking for what's fair. Think of it as a repayment for everything we invested in your life. College, the house, emotional support. I laughed. Actually laughed. It came out sharp and bitter. Emotional support. You didn't even hug me at the funeral. You didn't bring a meal. You didn't check in once after Kevin died. You were too busy celebrating a birthday. My mother's mouth twisted, offended. Sophia's milestone was important too. She'd been planning that party for months. I felt the fury boil over. And Kevin had been planning Lily's art show. He died trying to get there. They went quiet, just for a beat, but not long enough. My father looked me straight in the eye. This isn't about guilt. This is about responsibility. You're in a position to help your family, and you will regret turning your back on us. I stepped forward, every ounce of sorrow morphing into resolve. No, I won't. Because I finally see you for who you are. This isn't love. This isn't family. This is greed wrapped in guilt. Rachel, my mother started, her voice wavering now. Get out. Let's not be dramatic, my father said, standing. Out, I repeated, pointing to the door. You are not welcome here. You don't get to manipulate me with memories of things you never gave. They looked stunned, not because I was wrong, but because I had finally said it out loud. Leave. And don't come back unless it's with an apology, not a calculator. I didn't cry after they left. I stood in the middle of my living room, shaking, breath catching in my chest. It wasn't just a line I'd drawn. It was a door I finally closed. It was the next evening, just after dinner, when I noticed Lily sitting at the kitchen table with a stack of paper and her colored pencils. Her brow was furrowed in that determined way she got from Kevin, lips pressed together, eyes focused. I watched her quietly, wondering what new drawing she was working on. Maybe another picture of our family, the way it used to be. "What you making, sweetheart?" I asked gently, keeping my voice light. She didn't look up. "Just something I need to give Grandma and Grandpa." My heart dropped. "Lily?" "We talked about them, about how they made things harder." "I know," she said, still drawing. "But Daddy always said if someone hurts you, you should tell them the truth, even if it's hard." I walked over and glanced at the paper. It wasn't a drawing of a house or a sunset or even a memory. It was a list, carefully written in crayon. At the top, in big block letters, she had written, "Bill for real love and support." I sat down next to her, stunned. She read it aloud to me, her voice steady. "Being there when Daddy died, $0, not provided. Helping Mommy when she was sad, $0, not provided. Calling to check on me, $0, not provided. Hugging me at the funeral, $0, not provided." Each line hit harder than the last. At the bottom, she'd drawn a bold total, $0 and 0 cents. And beneath that, "Real grandparents are priceless, but this is what you earned." I stared at the page, my throat closing. It was a child's handwriting, a child's heart. But the truth in it was too sharp for even most adults to face. "Do you think it's too mean?" she asked quietly. I shook my head. "No, baby, I think it's honest." She nodded and set down her pencil. "I just wanted them to know why they don't get to ask for Daddy's money. Because they didn't earn anything." I pulled her into my arms, pressing a kiss into her hair. "Your daddy would be so proud of you." She curled into me, her voice muffled. "He always said people should see themselves clearly. I just wanted to help them see." We sat like that for a long time. No more words, just her small body leaning against mine, her heartbeat steady and brave. Sometimes it takes a child to say the things we're too broken to speak. And sometimes a little girl with a crayon can cut through more lies than a room full of adults. It was raining the afternoon I found the envelope. One of those soft, steady rains that makes everything feel slower, heavier. Lily was at school, and the house was finally quiet again. Not peaceful, just quiet. I was trying to sort through the endless stack of documents Kevin had so meticulously filed in the office. Insurance papers, mortgage info, passwords written in neat print. I wasn't ready, but I didn't know when I ever would be. I opened the bottom drawer of the filing cabinet, the one he used the least. Tucked between folders was a sealed envelope with my name on it. Rachel, written in Kevin's handwriting. Steady, familiar. Immediate tears stung my eyes. I sat down slowly, afraid that opening it might somehow make him more gone. But I also couldn't breathe until I knew what was inside. "If you're reading this," it began. Then something went wrong. His words hit like a whisper from across a canyon. He'd written it 3 months ago, right after a routine checkup, where his blood pressure had been higher than usual. I remembered that appointment. He told me it was nothing, just stress. He brought home Chinese takeout that night and made me laugh until I cried. "I didn't want to scare you," he wrote, "but I also didn't want to leave you unprepared." The letter was practical at first. He listed where to find things, how to access accounts, who to contact. It was so Kevin, steady, composed, taking care of everything. But then, the tone shifted. "There's something I need you to know," he wrote. "Your father approached me twice in the last year. Subtle at first, then more direct. He wanted help with investments. But it felt like more than that. I didn't tell you because I didn't want to put you in the middle. But if I'm gone, I need you to be careful. That money is for you and Lily. No one else." I stopped reading, breath caught in my chest. He knew. He'd seen what I refused to see for years. And even in his last months, he'd protected me from it. I kept reading. "I've set up a separate trust for Lily. It can't be touched until she's 25, except for her education. I wanted to make sure her future is safe. No matter what happens, I know you'll take care of her, but I wanted to make sure someone was taking care of you too. By the end, my hands were shaking. The last lines were the hardest to read. You were everything to me, Rach. Everything. I hope you feel me with you. I hope you never forget how deeply you were loved. And please, don't let anyone make you feel guilty for doing what's right, especially not them. I pressed the paper to my chest, crying like I hadn't cried since the day he died. Kevin was gone, but he'd left this one last act of love behind. He had seen the storm coming and tried to build me a shelter. Thomas's office smelled like leather and paper, like time had slowed down in there and never caught up. I sat on the opposite side of his massive oak desk, Kevin's letter folded in my coat pocket, my palms pressed against each other to stop them from shaking. The storm outside had followed me here, and though the rain tapped softly against the window, it felt deafening in my chest. Thomas looked tired, kind but tired. His brown hair had more gray than I remembered. He slid a file in front of him and glanced up at me with quiet understanding. "I'm so sorry, Rachel," he said softly. Kevin was one of the good ones, truly. I nodded because the words wouldn't come. He gave me space to breathe before continuing. "You mentioned concerns about your family." I handed him the letter. He read it slowly, jaw tightening with every line. When he was done, he looked up, all warmth replaced by focus. "I'm not surprised," he said. "Kevin told me he was worried. That's why we updated everything last fall." I leaned forward. "So, it's secure? They can't touch anything?" "Completely," he said. "Kevin named you as the sole beneficiary of his life insurance. His retirement accounts, everything. The trust for Lily is ironclad. No one can access it, not even you, except for educational expenses." I let out a shaky breath I didn't know I'd been holding. "They've already been pressuring me," I said, twisting it like I owe them something. My father made it sound like I was just holding the money until he came to collect. Thomas's mouth flattened into a hard line. "You don't owe them a cent. And if they try anything, contesting the will, harassment, intimidation, we're ready. But legally, they have no grounds. None." The word none settled around me like a weighted blanket. For the first time since Kevin died, I felt something close to safe. "I hate that he even had to plan for this," I whispered. "That he saw it coming." "He knew who he married," Thomas said gently. "And he knew who your family was. He did this out of love." Tears welled in my eyes again, not because I was scared this time, but because Kevin's care reached even beyond death. He hadn't left us defenseless. He'd left a fortress around our future. Thomas reached into the file and handed me a copy of the trust documents. "You hold this line, Rachel," he said. "And if they try to cross it, you call me, day or night." I nodded, clutching the papers to my chest. They weren't just documents. They were Kevin's last promise, signed and sealed. When I stepped back into the rain, I didn't feel quite so alone. He was still protecting us. Even now, the invitation came as a text message, blunt and presumptuous. "Family meeting at our house, Sunday at 2. This concerns all of us. Bring Lily." I stared at the screen for a long time, my stomach twisting. There was no question, no warmth, just a command wrapped in obligation. Like we were pieces on a chessboard they still believed they controlled. I didn't want to go. Every part of me screamed against it. But a voice in my head, Kevin's, steady and strong, reminded me that sometimes the only way to close a door is to walk through it first. Lily insisted on coming. "I have something to say too," she told me, clutching the same manila envelope she'd worked on days before. I didn't ask questions. I just nodded. Their house hadn't changed. Same manicured hedges, same stale air freshener smell that tried too hard to cover the scent of old furniture and old resentment. But it felt smaller now. We were led into the living room, where a half circle of chairs had been arranged like a jury box. My parents, Sophia, Uncle James, Aunt Rita. It was clear this wasn't a conversation. It was an ambush dressed up as concern. My father stood like he was giving a speech. "Thank you for coming. We know emotions have been high, but it's time to discuss this rationally." I didn't sit. Neither did Lily. I just looked at him and waited. "We've discussed a proposal," he continued, gesturing to a folder in his hand. Given the financial benefits you've received from Kevin's passing, we believe a fair redistribution of the life insurance would be appropriate. 50% to your mother and me, and 15% to Sophia, for stability, for fairness." The words didn't land like he thought they would. They didn't shock or wound. They confirmed everything Kevin had warned me about. Everything I'd tried not to believe. My mother chimed in, voice rehearsed and trembling with false humility. "We supported you for years, Rachel. College, the down payment. We were there. This is just a way to show gratitude." I looked around the room, wondering if anyone else could hear how wrong this was, but no one spoke, not even Sophia, who sat there smugly, as if the numbers were already hers. Lily stepped forward before I could. Her small voice cut through the room like a blade. "I made this," she said, handing my father her envelope. He opened it, confused at first. Then his face changed. "Bill for real love and support," she read aloud. "Being there when Daddy died, $0. Helping Mommy when she cried, $0. Hugging me at the funeral, $0. Being real grandparents, priceless, but not paid." Silence fell. My mother's face cracked. My father's jaw twitched. I took Lily's hand. "We're done here," I said. No yelling, no more tears. Just the truth, laid bare by an 8-year-old who'd already learned more about love than most adults in that room ever would. Lily's hands were shaking slightly as she held the envelope, but her voice, when it came, was steady, clear, stronger than I'd ever heard it. She stood there in the center of the living room, surrounded by adults twice her size, and unfolded her paper without flinching. "I made this for you," she said, looking straight at my parents, "because I think you forgot what really matters." My mother gave her a tight smile, the kind she reserved for uncomfortable church moments. "Sweetheart, we know you're upset, but this is between grown-ups." "No," Lily cut in, firm. "It's about me too. Daddy was my dad, and he loved us more than anything, and you didn't even come when we needed you." She held up the paper so the whole room could see. The childlike letters were bold, each word outlined with colored pencil. "Bill for real love and support," she read aloud. My father shifted in his seat. "Being there when Daddy died, $0. Helping Mommy when she cried, $0. Checking on me, 0. Hugging me at the funeral, 0. Being kind, 0. She paused, took a breath, and looked at both of them in turn. Real grandparents are supposed to show up. They're supposed to care. They're supposed to love you even when you're sad or messy or not fun to be around. You didn't do any of them. Her voice broke a little, but she kept going. "And now you want Daddy's money, but you didn't earn anything." She turned the page. Total, 0. No one spoke, not even Sophia, not even Aunt Rita, who had opened her mouth like she might object, but then thought better of it. "I miss him every day," Lily said, softer now. "But I know what he would have done. He would have told the truth, even when it hurt." She walked over and handed the invoice to my father, then stepped back beside me. I wrapped my arm around her, trembling from head to toe. Not from fear, but from the sheer force of what she'd just done. My mother finally spoke. "Rachel, she's just a child. She doesn't understand." I met her eyes, calm and cold. "She understands more than any of you." My father looked down at the paper like it was something foreign, like he couldn't comprehend how a child could hold up a mirror with such precision. "We're leaving," I said. "Don't call, don't text. If you want to be part of her life, you'll have to earn it." I didn't need to shout. Lily had already said everything. She held my hand as we walked out. Her shoulders were squared, her eyes dry. She gets that from Kevin, I thought. But no. In that moment, I realized she gets that from herself. The morning after the confrontation, the house was quiet in a way that finally felt intentional. No looming calls, no doorbell interruptions. Just the steady hum of the refrigerator and the rhythmic tapping of Lily's pencil as she colored at the table. The invoice she had given my parents now sat folded in my drawer, evidence of her courage and my clarity. I blocked their numbers that afternoon, not out of spite, but necessity. My fingers hesitated for half a second before pressing block, and then the silence that followed was immediate and freeing. I didn't tell Lily, I didn't need to. She could feel it too. Something in the air had lifted. We started building small rituals to fill the space Kevin used to occupy. Friday night pizza on the living room floor, story time before bed, even if she said she was too old. We planted a small tree in the backyard and called it the daddy tree. Lily insisted we add wind chimes so she could hear him laugh when the wind blew. I didn't argue. Some things didn't need explaining. Grief was still there, of course. Some mornings I woke up reaching for him. Sometimes Lily would stop mid-sentence and ask, "Do you think Daddy would have liked this drawing?" And I'd have to swallow the lump in my throat before answering. But the ache was no longer a cliff we fell from each day. It had softened into something we carried, something we could talk about without unraveling completely. I went back to work part-time, easing into the rhythm of deadlines and emails, grateful for a place that didn't ask too much. Ellen next door picked up Lily from school when I needed her to, always with a snack and a quiet hug. Kevin's parents called every other night, sending small care packages and memories from his childhood. Photos, letters, even an old baseball glove Lily wore around the house like a trophy. We didn't talk about my parents. Not for a while. I didn't have the words yet, and Lily didn't ask. It felt like walking away from a crumbling house. You look back once, then focus on where your feet are going. One night, Lily curled beside me on the couch, her head in my lap. The TV played quietly, forgotten. She looked up and said, "I think Daddy would be proud of us." I stroked her hair. "Yeah, baby, I think so too." There was no thunderclap moment, no cinematic turning point. Just the slow, deliberate act of choosing peace over pain. Each day, a quiet decision to move forward without dragging the weight of people who refused to love us well. The damage my parents left behind was real, but so was our healing. It was a Tuesday evening when Marcus showed up on our doorstep, suitcase in one hand, a box of Lily's favorite pastries in the other. I hadn't expected him until the weekend, but when I opened the door and saw his tired face and familiar smile, something inside me cracked. The part of me that had been holding everything together for too long suddenly let go. "I caught an earlier flight," he said, voice hoarse. "I just needed to be here." I pulled him into a hug before the words could slip away. He smelled faintly of airplane air and aftershave. So much like Kevin, it made my chest ache. Lily ran down the hall when she heard his voice, flinging herself into his arms with the kind of joy she hadn't shown in weeks. "Uncle Marcus," she squealed, "you brought the almond ones." "For the bravest girl I know," he said, handing her the box and ruffling her hair. That night, we sat around the kitchen table, the three of us, eating pastries we didn't need but did anyway. Marcus told stories from Japan, about the noisy vending machines and the tiny apartments, and the students who called him Professor Big Voice. Lily giggled with her mouth full of powdered sugar, and for a moment, the house felt warm again. Alive. Later, after Lily had fallen asleep on the couch with her head on Marcus's shoulder, he looked at me and said, "Kev would have been proud of you." I blinked back tears. "I keep wondering if I'm doing this right." "There's no right," he said. "There's just showing up, and you're doing that every single day." I told him about the confrontation, the invoice, the silence that followed. He didn't look surprised, only sad. "He always tried to shield you from them," Marcus said softly. "Even when we were kids, he worried about how they treated you. I think he knew if he ever couldn't be here, I'd have to be." "And here you are," I whispered. "Here I am." He moved into our guest room the next day, saying he could work remotely until the end of term. He made breakfast every morning, badly but with heart. He helped Lily with her math homework and showed her how to make the perfect origami crane. When she had nightmares, she went to him just as easily as she came to me. Kevin's absence was still a shadow in every room, but Marcus filled some of the silence, not replacing him, never that, but holding space, listening, loving. One night, I found Marcus sitting in the backyard under the stars, Kevin's old hoodie wrapped around his shoulders. "You think he hears us?" he asked. "I hope so," I said, "because if he does, he knows we're still showing up for each other." Marcus nodded, eyes shining, and in the quiet between us, I felt it too. Kevin was still here, in Lily's laugh, in Marcus's presence, in the family we were learning how to be. It started with a voicemail from my mother 2 days after we walked out of their living room. Rachel, we're still your parents. You may not like how we handled things, but shutting us out completely, that's cruel. Family doesn't abandon family. I deleted it without listening to the end, but the messages kept coming. Long emails, texts at odd hours, all laced with guilt and half-formed apologies that crumbled under scrutiny. The word sorry appeared often, but always in a sentence that began or ended with, "But you have to understand, I didn't, not anymore." They tried other angles. Aunt Rita called, soft-spoken and hesitant. "They're hurting too, Rachel. They didn't mean to come off that way. Your dad just doesn't know how to express himself." I thanked her and hung up. It wasn't about how they came off. It was about what they revealed. Then came the letter, thick envelope, printed return address in my father's neat block letters. Inside was a formal note, typed like a business memo. "If a reasonable financial arrangement cannot be reached, we may be forced to reevaluate our relationship with you and Lily going forward." It wasn't just manipulative. It was a threat, carefully dressed as concern. I took it straight to Thomas, who scanned the letter with a grim look. "They're testing you," he said, "seeing if you'll flinch. You won't." "No," I said, more certain than I expected to be. "I won't." Still, it rattled me. Not because I feared legal consequences. Thomas had made it clear they had no claim. But because it confirmed something I hadn't wanted to admit. My parents hadn't just let me down. They saw me as a resource now, an investment that had finally matured. When they realized intimidation wouldn't work, the tone shifted. My mother sent a bouquet to Lily's school with a note that read, "Grandma misses you every day. Tell Mommy to call." The school secretary called me immediately, voice tight with concern. "We didn't know there was an issue," she said, "but we'll make sure it doesn't happen again." I blocked their numbers on every device. I warned the school. I changed the locks. And still, some nights I lay awake wondering how we had gotten here. How two people who raised me could turn into strangers so quickly. Marcus found me one of those nights, standing by the sink in the dark, turning my wedding ring over in my fingers. "They're not trying to reach you, Rach," he said quietly. "They're trying to control you. Big difference." I nodded, swallowing the ache in my throat. The silence that followed their last attempt wasn't peaceful. It buzzed around me like static, but it was honest. And sometimes, honesty hurts less than pretending people are who you wish they were. They wanted guilt to do what greed couldn't. But they underestimated the kind of strength grief had carved into me. Lily came home from school with a drawing of our family. Just the two of us standing under a tree with a swing. Kevin was there too, above us in the sky, drawn as a star with a smile. She'd given us all capes. "Because we're the heroes now," she said. I almost cried right there at the kitchen table. Outside, the world still spun, full of noise and people who didn't understand what grief really does to you. Inside, we were building something new, something quieter, safer. The manipulation attempts hadn't stopped entirely. There was still the occasional email from Sophia, always phrased like she was the victim. "You don't understand how hard things have been for me too." My parents had gone silent after Thomas responded to their last letter with legal language they couldn't twist into guilt. But I knew they weren't done. I could feel them waiting, hoping I'd falter, that I'd get lonely enough to come crawling back. But I didn't. Instead, I kept the boundaries firm, not just with them, but with everyone who thought they had a say in my grief, in my choices. I learned to say no without explaining. I learned that protecting my daughter wasn't selfish. It was sacred. Lily thrived in the calm. She slept better, laughed more. She and Marcus had developed their own language of inside jokes and whispered secrets. Sometimes I'd catch them huddled over a chessboard or an old photo album, Marcus explaining who each face was with the reverence of someone who knew how much that history mattered now. One night, Lily asked, "Do you think Grandma and Grandpa miss us?" I paused before answering. "Maybe, but sometimes people miss the idea of you more than the real you." She nodded slowly, biting her lip. "Do you miss them?" I thought about it. About birthdays where they showed up late. About holidays where Sophia's needs always took center stage. About the silence after Kevin died. "Sometimes," I said honestly, "but I don't miss feeling small." She looked up at me, her expression older than her years. "I don't want to feel small either." You never have to, I promised. It became a kind of vow after that. Every decision, big or small, filtered through one question. Does this make us feel safe? If the answer was no, we didn't do it. I stopped taking calls I didn't recognize. I deleted emails without reading past the first line. I kept Lily close, but never caged. She had already lived through one kind of loss. I wouldn't let the weight of grown-up expectations steal what was left of her innocence. I couldn't control what my family did, but I could control the space Lily and I lived in. And in that space, there would be truth. There would be kindness. There would be peace. We weren't just surviving anymore. We were protecting the ground Kevin helped us build. And we were standing strong on it, together. The letter came on a Thursday, plain envelope, no return address, but I recognized the handwriting immediately. My mother's careful, looping script. I stared at it for a long time before opening it, unsure if I wanted whatever was inside to pull me backward again. But curiosity, or maybe some thread of hope I hadn't fully severed, got the better of me. Inside was a folded piece of lined stationery, written in ink, not typed, not rehearsed. Dear Rachel and Lily, we've spent the past few weeks thinking about everything. The funeral, the things we said, the things we didn't. There's no easy way to write this, but we know we hurt you, deeply, and we know we failed you when you needed us most. I kept reading slowly, like each word might disintegrate if I looked at it too hard. We let our own pride and expectations cloud what really mattered. We put money and control where there should have been comfort and care. We didn't show up the way parents should, our grandparents. We've started seeing a counselor, together. It's been hard, but necessary. The truth is, we're not proud of who we became. We're trying to understand how we got here and how to be better, if you'll ever let us. There was no request, no hidden agenda, no ask for forgiveness wrapped in guilt, just a quiet admission of wrong. We don't expect you to trust us again overnight, but we hope in time we can earn a place back in your life. If not for us, then for Lily, who deserved better from all of us. Love, Mom and Dad. I sat at the kitchen table with the letter in my lap, the house silent except for the low hum of the fridge and the soft tap of rain against the window. Marcus walked in a few minutes later and saw my face. Something wrong, he asked gently. I shook my head. Not wrong, just different. He read the letter and was quiet for a while afterward. It sounds sincere, he said, but words are easy. I nodded. I'm not rushing anything, but maybe it's a start. Later that night, I read the letter to Lily. She sat cross-legged on the couch, listening carefully, her face unreadable. Do you think they mean it? She asked. I don't know yet, I told her. But I think Daddy would want us to give people a chance to change, if they really try. Lily leaned her head against my shoulder. We'll wait and see. That's all it was. One small door cracked open. Not forgiveness, not reunion, but a glimmer, a maybe. And after everything, even that felt like a quiet miracle. The sun was just beginning to set when I found myself rereading the letter. I'd tucked it in the drawer beside my bed, thinking I'd leave it there and forget about it. But something about the softness in my mother's words, the unfamiliar humility, kept pulling me back. They weren't asking for forgiveness, only a chance to prove they might deserve it. And maybe that mattered. Lily was in the next room, humming softly while she built something out of old shoeboxes and glitter glue. She didn't bring it up again after we read the letter, didn't ask when or if she'd see them. She just waited, letting me carry the weight of the decision. Kevin used to say she had an old soul. I believed it now more than ever. I called Marcus that night, told him I was thinking about it, just thinking. Only if it's on your terms, he said. They don't get to write the rules this time. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. It would be public, neutral ground, short, just Lily, me, and them. He was quiet for a moment. She's strong, but don't let them test her again. I won't. I chose a small ice cream shop downtown. Bright, busy. A place that smelled of vanilla and waffle cones, where no one could raise their voices without drawing stares. I sent a short email to my parents. 1 hour, this Saturday, 3 p.m. No expectations beyond that. They responded within the hour. We'll be there, thank you. Lily picked out her outfit carefully that morning, a soft yellow sundress and the necklace Kevin had given her last Christmas. She held my hand a little tighter than usual as we walked toward the shop, her eyes scanning the sidewalk ahead. "They're already here," she whispered. My parents stood just outside, both dressed too formally for the setting, as if they didn't know how to shrink themselves into the kind of moment this was supposed to be. My mother clutched a wrapped book. My father looked nervous for the first time in my life. We walked up, and I nodded stiffly. "Let's go inside." They didn't talk over each other. They didn't bring up the past. My mother gave Lily the book. Something about constellations, not princesses. My father asked about school, her art, her favorite ice cream flavor. Lily answered quietly but politely, glancing at me every so often as if checking for signs. I gave her small nods. She was in control. After 45 minutes, I stood. "It's time to go." My parents didn't argue. My mother blinked quickly, holding back tears. "Thank you for today." I didn't say anything, just took Lily's hand and walked away. It wasn't reconciliation, it wasn't repair. But it wasn't a mistake either. Just one cautious step. And for now, that was enough. It was strange at first, seeing their names appear in my inbox without dread curling in my stomach. The messages were short, measured, not performative or emotional, just careful. My mother wrote to say thank you for the visit and that she'd like to keep trying. On your terms, whenever you're ready. My father's email was more formal, but he included a note that surprised me. "We've started seeing a therapist. Together, weekly. We thought it was too late to change. Maybe it still is, but we're trying." I didn't respond right away. I needed to see more than words. A few weeks later, they asked if they could attend one of Lily's soccer games. No assumptions, no pressure. I said yes, as long as they stayed in the background. They did. They brought folding chairs, sat quietly near the edge of the field, clapped when everyone else clapped. No demands for hugs, no tears, no dramatic entrances, just presence. I didn't know what to do with that. After the game, Lily walked over to them. She didn't run, she didn't hide. She simply said, "Thanks for coming," and let my mom hand her a water bottle. It felt like watching a bridge being built, one plank at a time. A week later, I invited them to join us at our family therapist's office, not to talk, just to listen. They came, sat on the small couch, hands folded, faces serious. The therapist, a woman I trusted implicitly, asked if they were ready to hear the impact of their actions without defending them. They said yes, and they listened. As I told them what it was like to grieve Kevin while feeling abandoned by the people who were supposed to catch me, as I explained what it did to Lily to lose her father and feel her grandparents vanish in the same breath, my mother cried but didn't interrupt. My father kept nodding, eyes locked on the floor. When the session ended, they didn't rush out or rush to fix it. They just said, "Thank you for letting us be here." We kept going, slowly. They asked before every visit, respected every number, sent books instead of toys, showed up to Lily's school art show, and stayed in the back row, letting her shine. My mother began asking questions that didn't center herself. My father stopped offering unsolicited advice and just listened. It wasn't perfect. It would never be perfect. But for the first time, it felt like they weren't trying to win something back. They were just showing up consistently, quietly, like they'd finally understood that trust wasn't theirs by right. It had to be earned, and maybe, just maybe, they were starting to. The day of Kevin's memorial celebration dawned with soft skies and air that smelled faintly of lilacs and charcoal smoke. It had been a year since he died, a full circle of seasons, of firsts without him. I didn't want another solemn church service, another row of black clothes and unreadable faces. Kevin would have hated that. He'd have wanted laughter, bad music, good food. So I planned something simple, something real, a gathering in our backyard with the people who had shown up, stayed close, and helped carry the weight when I couldn't. Marcus arrived early, arms full of folding chairs and grill tools, still managing to crack jokes, even with tongs in one hand and a stack of burger buns in the other. Kev always burned the hot dogs on purpose, he said with a grin. Said they tasted better that way. Criminal. Diana and Robert brought photo albums, old ones. Kevin as a boy, missing teeth, beaming next to a crooked science fair project. Kevin at graduation in our first apartment, holding baby Lily with hands so gentle it broke my heart to remember. They set them out on the patio table like offerings, and everyone who passed by stopped to flip through them, laughing, crying, remembering. Lily had made a memory book of her own. She stood near the porch with it proudly, showing people the pages. Ticket stubs, notes, silly drawings Kevin used to leave in her lunchbox. She'd written a dedication in her careful handwriting, for Daddy. Because remembering you helps me smile, even when it hurts. People came who mattered. Ellen, our neighbor, with homemade lemonade and soft hugs. Kevin's coworkers, who still talked about his integrity like it was something sacred. Friends from college. Even my cousin Jennifer, who had quietly distanced herself from Sophia and reached out months ago with a message that simply said, I see you. I believe you. The ones who didn't come didn't need to be there. My parents had been invited carefully with boundaries. They arrived late and stayed to the side, respectful. My mother helped gather napkins when the wind picked up. My father refilled water pitchers without being asked. They didn't try to make the day about them. For once, they knew it wasn't their place. As the sun dipped behind the trees, Marcus lit the fire pit. We passed around marshmallows and cheap wine, and one by one, people shared stories. Some were funny, some nearly broke me. All of them wrapped Kevin back around us like a blanket. I looked at Lily, her face lit by the fire, her laughter carrying across the yard, and I realized something I hadn't dared to hope for. We weren't just remembering Kevin. We were living the kind of love he left behind. And in that backyard, beneath strings of lights and a sky slowly darkening with stars, it finally felt like enough. It was the morning after the memorial celebration when Lily climbed into bed beside me, still in her pajamas, her hair wild from sleep. The air smelled like campfire smoke and leftover cupcakes. We hadn't said much after everyone left the night before, just soft goodnights and heavy sighs, the kind that come when a long, emotional day finally settles into stillness. She pulled Kevin's old hoodie over her knees and looked up at me with serious eyes. Do you think Daddy would be happy with how everything went? I reached for her hand. I think he would have loved it, especially the marshmallows. She smiled a little. Then she was quiet again, eyes tracing the pattern on the quilt. I've been thinking, she said finally, about Grandma and Grandpa. My stomach tensed, but I let her finish. I know they were mean before, she continued, choosing her words carefully. And they made everything harder, but they were different yesterday. They didn't try to talk over people or act fake. Grandma even helped clean up. She did, I said softly. I remember what Daddy used to say, she added, about giving people a second chance if they're really trying. He said it's easy to forgive someone who says sorry. It's harder when they try to show it instead. Her words landed like a gentle nudge against a door I hadn't decided whether to open. I'd been holding on to boundaries like lifelines, and for good reason, but Lily wasn't asking me to forget. She was asking me to consider what came next. I don't want to pretend like nothing happened, she said, but maybe we could give them a little more time to show us. Not everything, just a little. I pulled her close, brushing her hair back from her face. You're a lot like him, you know. Daddy, I nodded. The way you see people, the way you still hope, even after being hurt. She leaned into my side. You don't have to decide right now, Mommy. I just wanted you to know I'd be okay if we gave them another try, if they keep being better. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. But it wasn't a closed door either. It was something in between. A cautious maybe. The beginning of a different kind of healing. Not the kind that smooths over what was broken, but the kind that acknowledges every crack and scar and chooses to keep going anyway. Later that day, I wrote a short message to my parents. Thank you for how you showed up yesterday. We noticed. Lily noticed. Let's keep it small for now, but let's keep it real. I didn't know what the future would look like between us. I just knew that if we were going to build anything again, it would be slow, deliberate, and with Lily's quiet courage guiding the way. Not forgiveness, but maybe, finally, a kind of closure. The lawyer's office was quieter than I remembered. The windows let in a soft winter light, casting long shadows across the bookshelves and worn leather chairs. Thomas sat behind his desk, his glasses low on his nose, hands folded neatly over a folder marked with Kevin's name. Lily sat beside me, legs swinging gently from her chair, her hands wrapped tightly around the locket Kevin had given her. Marcus was there too, a calm, steady presence just behind us. We hadn't needed him to be present for the reading, but he wanted to be. I didn't realize how much I needed that until now. Thomas cleared his throat gently. Thank you for being here. What we're about to review is, in many ways, already reflected in the documents you've seen. But Kevin left this process with care, and he left a few personal notes to be read aloud. I felt myself brace, even though I knew there were no surprises. Kevin had been deliberate, even in the hardest things. He planned his days around our needs, left lists on the fridge when he traveled, reminders to pick up juice boxes and check the thermostat. Of course, he had thought through everything for after he was gone. Thomas began to read. Kevin had left everything to Lily and me. The house, the insurance, the savings. Every account, every investment, all clearly outlined, with no room for misinterpretation. There was a trust for Lily, managed until she turned 25, with allowances for education, health, and support. Kevin's handwriting was embedded in the official letters, notes added in the margins. Use this for college, or dance lessons, or whatever makes her heart light again. I felt a lump form in my throat as Thomas read on. There was a note for me. Rachel, if you're hearing this, it means the worst has happened. I'm sorry. God, I wish I could be there to say these words myself. But I want you to know that every decision in this will was made with one goal. To protect you and Lily. You're the best thing that ever happened to me. I'm not leaving you unguarded. I'm leaving you with everything I could give. I know you'll raise Lily with strength and softness, just like you always have. And I know you'll teach her how to love big, even when the world gives her reasons not to. Let this be the last thing you have to worry about. The rest of your life should be about healing, not survival. Love always, Kevin. When Thomas finished, no one spoke for a while. The room felt full of Kevin's presence, his calm, his care, his unwavering love stitched into every clause and signature. I looked at Lily. Her eyes were damp but steady. He really thought of everything, she whispered. I nodded, pressing her hand to my chest. He did. Right down to the words we needed most. The last of the autumn leaves had fallen when Lily and I packed away the wind chimes from the daddy tree and replaced them with soft white lights. She wrapped them carefully around the branches, pausing to admire how they flickered in the fading light. He'd like this, she said. It's quiet, but still kind of sparkly. She was right. Kevin always loved things that didn't shout for attention but still left an impression. That's how he lived. That's how he loved. It had been more than a year since he passed. A year of unraveling, rebuilding, drawing lines, and sometimes slowly erasing them. The house had changed, not in structure, but in energy. The grief no longer owned every corner. There was laughter again. There was music playing while we cooked. There were game nights with Marcus, who had unofficially become our third roommate. And there was room, space for memories and for healing. Room to say no, and just enough room to say yes, carefully, to the people who had proven they could be different. My parents had continued their quiet efforts. They showed up without asking for anything. They respected our space, didn't cross the boundaries we'd set. My mother had begun writing letters to Lily, real letters, not emails, filled with small stories from her own childhood, as if trying to reach her granddaughter not with guilt, but with connection. And Lily, cautious but curious, wrote back. We didn't call it reconciliation. That word felt too clean for what had been so messy. But there was something forming. Not the family I'd once hoped for, but something new, smaller, wiser, real. One night, as I tucked Lily into bed, she asked, "Is family the people you're born with, or the people who stay?" I thought for a moment. Sometimes both, but always the ones who show up with love, not demands. She nodded like she already knew the answer. So Marcus is definitely family. Definitely, I smiled. And Ellen, and Daddy, still. Always. I kissed her forehead and watched her drift into sleep, her small body curled under a blanket stitched with memories. And I realized something I hadn't fully understood until now. Kevin had left us more than a will. more than money or instructions. He left us the blueprint for love that doesn't come with strings, for loyalty that doesn't need to be earned with pain. And that's what we carried forward. In the weeks that followed, we made new traditions. Sunday pancakes with too much syrup, evenings by the fire pit, letters tucked into lunchboxes. We talked about Kevin freely, his jokes, his hugs, his ridiculous dance moves. He wasn't a ghost in the room. He was part of the foundation. We didn't fix everything, but we found our version of whole. And in that quiet, deliberate life we were building, together, we finally redefined what family truly meant. The ones who show up, the ones who stay, the ones who love without asking you to shrink. That's who we chose. That's who we became.